Hello. Welcome to episode 2 of my Ariana Grande series, which is called Why the Internet Won't Forgive Ariana Grande. So, for years, Ariana's reputation was pretty much Teflon. Even for something as egregious as donut licking scandal, which was wild, pretty shocking and disrespectful, her image basically stayed intact. It didn't even leave a mark. I didn't even know about it until like years and years later. She was often excused for bad behavior, and very much, I think, because she was typecast as the Madonna in the Madonna-Whore paradigm, the sort of angelic, sexy baby woman child who was coddled, seen as innocent, and even victimized. However, when the Ethan Slater thing happened, specifically because a child was involved, people finally unloaded the clip on her. It was as if the internet was making up for years of overforgiveness. The goal of this episode is not to relitigate the scandal. Ariana has already been punished more than enough. The point of this episode is to explore why a woman who has clearly evolved and learned from her past has been denied full redemption. So let's get started. Early in Ariana's career, she had this tiny frame, high voice, and childlike energy that gave her this aura of harmlessness. Even the donut licking incident, which shows a total lack of awareness of her impact on others and clear impulsivity, was dismissed as childish behavior because she was already seen as our collective sexy baby, right? So as you can see right here, especially after she survived tragedies like the Manchester booming and the loss of her, I would say, her soulmate, Mac Miller. It really elevated her into this sort of tragic angel archetype. And her imagery actually reinforced this sort of sainted femininity. There was a lot of white clouds, soft pinks, halos, heaven iconography. She was hyper feminized and sentimentalized. But then when she suddenly popped up marrying Dalton Gomez shortly after the death, she went from Mac Miller directly to being engaged with Pete Davidson. I think suspicions began to rise, and that was the first crack in the veneer. Because Americans, at the end of the day, this is a Christian puritanical country, and Americans are weirdly puritanical about marriage. And I started to feel as if she was making a mockery of it. And then, unfortunately, the Ethan Slater scandal broke. And what ended up happening was a cultural firestorm. Literally, all of these previous sins basically recirculated like evidence at a trial. Naya Rivera's book, Naya Rivera has died a few years ago, but her book was pulled out of the archives to talk about how, Big Sean had Ariana at his house when she was away one day. Gian Aiko threw some shade at her about her interactions with Big Sean as well. And then there was also rumors that circulated about overlap with Mac Miller's exes and Pete Davidson's exes prior to previous girlfriends, And the truth of the matter is, fans remembered her rapid progression from Mac to Pete to Dalton, and then eventually to Ethan. And it read as emotional whiplash. When she left Dalton at the same speeds that she left her previous boyfriends, and she did so while harming another marriage when there was literally a baby involved. It activated American puritanical moral panic, basically, because at the core, America is still obsessed with this idea of marriage and purity. It's part of our culture, And whether or not these overlaps were real, or if the context in it could have provided more clarity, it didn't matter. The optics confirmed the archetype that we put her into. The Ethan Slater story became a story about karmic retribution for a decade of perceived romantic thefts. And the public was not punishing her for one affair. They were making her atone for every time that she had been let off easy. And I think a lot of this, and the panic, the moral panic, really came from the fact that for much of her career, as I mentioned before, Ariana was almost sainted as a Madonna figure. She was sainted by tragedy, by purity, by childlike energy. But at the end of the day, Madonna is an allegory for the Virgin Mary. And Lily J as a mother of a child, is always going to trump Ariana in that Madonna archetype. So if Lily J is the Madonna, then Ariana had no choice to fall into the whore archetype, and in fact the Jezebel archetype, which once she was cemented that way, it's almost impossible for there to be innocence, because our society rarely affords any empathy to women who are seen as like temptresses. I want to plug a creator here. I think it's Tell the Bees, who has a great series on infidelity, and it just kind of, that is coming to mind as I'm talking right now. So I'll leave his username below. But the difficulty with this, to me especially, is that people talk about her marriage like it's like some storyline in a reality TV show. But people forget that marriage is an inner world. As a woman who is actually married myself, I feel like I'm uniquely qualified to talk about how how opaque marriage can look from the outside. Marriage is hard. It's complicated, and it's often invisible work that people don't see. And pain that happens within marriage is pain that people don't understand, and that by the nature of the commitments is made to be kept private. In Eternal Sunshine, Ariana paints Dalton as someone who's pretty emotionally manipulative and controlling and withholding of love and affection long before Ethan Slater was in the picture. And to be honest, her profound weight loss and retreat from public life occurred long before Ethan came into the picture as well. I believe that that was a symptom of the distress that was going on in her marriage. And it was so severe that it looked as if she was disappearing before our eyes. And she still, in some ways, looks that way. All I have to say is that from what I saw, it seemed like that marriage had her in a very dark place psychologically. And as for Ethan and Lily are high school sweethearts, okay? I cannot purport to know what went on in their marriage, okay? There's a lot of development that goes on between young adult, like when you're a young adult in high school and you grow into adults, you know? I suspect that Ethan and Lily's marriage was probably far more fractured than even Lily admits. That doesn't justify what happened between them, right? Obviously, there's a child involved, and that is tragic. But at the end of the day, it's two people in despair who found each other at rock bottom and were trying to survive, perhaps, regardless of whether it was right or wrong, you know? And I think another thing that has always been percolated in the back of my mind during this scandal was a line from Thank You Next, where Ariana sings, "I only want to do that shit once real bad. I want to make that shit last. If something happens, at least the song is a smash." And there's also an interview that one of my wonderful followers tagged me in, where she goes over the fact that her parents actually divorced, and she desperately wanted to do better and keep a marriage. She said her mother's divorce from her father shaped her fear of failure in love. And it was actually when she decided to leave Dalton, it was a realization of her mother's strength, which was in a certain way a Saturnian lesson. I think the world misread a woman in crisis, grieving her own broken foundations, as a manipulative schemer and an evil Jezebel who deserved to be reviled and judged and thrown away. Especially in this day and age, when things are so binary and the internet is totally erases nuance, I think people really felt like they needed to punish her. Years of unpunished missteps built a kind of cultural debt with Ariana, and the Ethan Slater saga felt like a internet collective debt collection notice. So the outrage for the Ethan Slater situation became a form of moral catharsis and a restoration of balance after years of leniency. But from a psychological lens, Ariana's impulsivity, even if she is constantly being the other woman in relationships, reflects what many child stars share, which is an unstable sense of self-identity and a need for external validation. If that really was the case, it probably comes from the thrill of being chosen, which mirrors the same external validation she receives in fame. And also, I don't want to understate, I think you people need to understand something very important, that Ariana Grande has real PTSD. It's not like she kind of has PTSD, oh, she might have PTSD. No, she's got real PTSD. 800 people were injured at a show that she put on. 32 of her fans lost their lives, okay? And her soulmate shortly thereafter died of an overdose after she broke up with him and started dating somebody else, okay? These kind of traumas fracture the mind, okay? And also, after that, all those things happened. I pulled up a list of the dates, which we'll go over more of this in the next episode, which is going to be about her trauma. But I pulled up the dates. She was not allowed a moment's rest. Scooter had her on a 101 show tour immediately, almost in the immediate aftermath of all of these horrible losses. She never had time to process. She never had time to heal. And so at that point, these wounds are going to run deep and you're going to be clinging on to anything that you can find. A life raft in an ocean, in like a storm, so to speak, you know? So by the time Ethan's story broke, I really believe that she was drowning in unhealed pain and clinging to anything that looked like light. And instead of compassion, we crucified her. Yeah. It kind of shows how dark our culture has become. This generation doesn't seem like they're going to stop until they destroy somebody completely. I feel like Gen Z is gonna be kind of like us. Like, you guys are not going to learn empathy until you catch a body. And I just hope to God that that body is not Ariana Grande, because I think that she's incredibly talented. And honestly, I think that she's a beautiful soul. And I think she has so much to offer this world. Online culture, though, these days don't want to hear about redemption. They want spectacle, they want blood, and they want someone to rip off the pedestal and tear to shreds in the streets like we did in the French Revolution. So in conclusion, do I think that what happened with Ethan Slater was right? No, of course I don't. Okay? No, I don't. But as is the mantra on this channel, this is a nuanced situation. It was a nuanced situation. And I don't think that the Ethan Slater situation was ever about one affair. It was about breaking a decade-long illusion that the public built around her and making her pay for it, even though she did not ask for that illusion to be built around her. The internet infantilized Ariana, but then punished her for becoming an adult. And as she literally has started to fade away before our eyes, have continued to criticize her and revile her with the same sort of force until she disappears completely. Ariana's made mistakes, to be sure, but she's also clearly doing the work on herself. Eternal Sunshine is a documentary of therapy, accountability, and radical self-forgiveness. I don't know if the public opinion will ever fully forgive her, but I believe, from what I hear from her music and from her interviews, that she has found something more valuable, which is the ability to forgive herself. I don't think that she needs our absolution. I think that she's already found her own, and I think that that's a really powerful thing. So, yeah. That's the end. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. This was an emotional one. I really feel for Ari and a lot of these public figures who we crucify in the media. So hopefully this provokes some level of self-reflection about our culture and the ways we treat our celebrities who, in case people often forget, are actually people too. All right. I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.